Awesome. So kind of do a quick recap here again, and we'll jump into Chapter 4. So we've covered content for leads, not just views in Chapter 1. Chapter 2, we've covered digestible webinar formats. So what is bite-sized, what can your audience handle, and also thinking about that when you're repurposing your content. Chapter 3, crowdsourced webinar content. So how are you generating those ideas to make them timely and relevant? And then Chapter 4 here, which is a little bit of crossover from Chapter 2, but we'll try to break it out a little bit more. But the idea of webinar inception. So the gift that kind of keeps on giving. All right. So according to this stat, is from 2013. It came from a survey of 400 B2B marketing professionals. This is done by Pardot. The average attendance rate is slowly decreasing. So this being said, 84% of your registrants don't actually care if they see a live event. That's not saying that only 16% are now attending, but typically 84%, it may or may not be of consequence that they actually get to your live event. So in all reality, we can say that, hey, they might be DVRing us. And based on your own personal experience and what you see, you might actually do the same thing. Like I said, we're getting tons of webinar invites. What merits our time to actually jump on it and attend the live event? So a lot of these people are going to be looking for the webinar recording that you're sending out afterwards, or maybe that they come across on their own in researching a particular topic later on. So we've talked about the tactics that are going to help you increase your webinar attendance rates, hopefully. But there's still people, again, that are really just going to value that recording. So you want to make sure that this recorded content leaves a really lasting impression, because that might actually be the only one that you get. Marketers really have to think about, are we missing out on the biggest boat of leads because they never actually attend the event, and we fail to take a closer look at what we're actually doing with the content that we have afterwards. So with the idea of webinar inception that we've talked about is kind of creating these mini segments within your webinar. So a webinar within a webinar. Thinking about the natural cut points where you can slice and dice this content up and repurpose it. There's a lot of content, as you can see here, that can be reused from a webinar, and you want to make sure that you're wringing it out, getting the most out of it that you absolutely can. So when you're thinking about the webinar recording, plan ahead with your speakers so that they're on board with the concept of maybe chaptering this webinar or creating natural breakpoints during the live event that can be easily edited and make up those bite-sized recording snippets. So thus the reason you kind of see these chapters pop out in our webinar, because we want to be able to take each of those chapters and cut it up and maybe into its own mini webinar and promote those on different channels versus only having this one 45-minute long webinar to do so with. So again, the idea here being reutilizing it, recycling it, reimagining it as many places as you can. So utilize those different pieces of recorded content to repurpose it on your blog, to put it on your YouTube channel, to embed on your website or landing pages that might relate to another piece of content that you're trying to promote. And when you're doing this, think about your own attention span. How long do you typically watch a video? Is it a minute? Maybe it's 3 minutes max. So if you think about the people you're targeting, they probably got the same bandwidth as you. We're all super busy, and we're looking for that succinct message. Tell me what I need to do to make my job easier, to make this project easier. So cut out the fluff and really get to the good stuff. Another way to think about this, I think, is think about your webinars as a set of brand new tires. They don't do you any good if you use them once and then you park them in your garage. You're going to try to get the most mileage out of those tires as absolutely possible. So once you're done with the tires, you could throw them away in the tire graveyard or a huge waste yard, or you could turn them back into something unique that is going to attract an entirely new audience, or again, the relevant audience that can take your message to heart and really utilize it. So I think the same goes with webinars. Don't let them go to waste and just throw them on your archive page hoping that they're going to generate the traffic there or capture the leads that you really want there and let them die. Reimagine the ways that you can repurpose your webinar content. So we went from new set of tires to a junkyard of tires to this crazy lion sculpture created out of tires. An example that I'll give from you, is this, do you think this is 5 webinars? Or do you think this is actually 1 webinar? And we did this in our own series recently. There was a webinar called Maximizing the Impact of Webinars as a Lead Gen Channel. That was a lot of webinar terms in one sentence. We were able to cut this 60-minute webinar up into 5 2 to 3 minute snippets that captured the essence of the entire event, but talked about a very specific part of that topic, which is exactly what we're doing today with kind of chaptering out this webinar. We then put those snippets on landing pages and then drove traffic to them via all our promotional mediums like I've mentioned before, social, email, blog, LinkedIn group discussions, archive page. So we're really trying to maximize this recorded content and continue to capture leads after the live event. And this is just one webinar. So if you have a whole archive of webinars that's sitting on some page, pick one that's most relevant, most timely, maybe one that you had most success with, and see if you can break it down and do the same. I'll hand it over to Eric to dive into this a little bit more from the scripted side.
Yeah, I think for one of our last tips here, I'd say everyone does the blog post recap. We like to kind of summarize exactly what the main points are. We also upload everything on SlideShare so people can access our slides. That's usually the most common question. People always want to make sure that they have the slides. It's just really easy to distribute around your office and things like that. But something else that we also do is we offer worksheets. So it's kind of like just a little thank you for attending the webinar. Here's something you can actually take home and practice what you just learned. So if it is about creating an editorial calendar, we'll give you a free editorial calendar worksheet to kind of think through your to-do list. So if there's anything like that you can give back to your audience, I would highly recommend creating it. It's just I had really, really good engagement rates.